Hi, this is the last video for this week's lecture, and I'm just going to give you, for reproduction, we're going to kind of do the parts and what do they do. So you should be able to recognize these anatomical parts on diagrams. When we look at the virtual labs, hopefully you'll be able to see these features and identify what their major functions are. So it's a really short, very abbreviated reproduction lecture. So here we have and the book is very nicely organized for us, that it has these tables that are all summarized and then a photo. And that's really, if you want to know more about details about these different structures, there's lots more in the chapter, but this is just the parts I'm going to concentrate on. So probably most of you know with the male reproductive system that the place where the male hormones, most of the testosterone is produced, is in the testes, and the testes are in the sac that hangs below the outside of the body, called the scrotum, and probably most of you are aware that the sperm are that not only testosterone is made in the testes, but that's where the sperm originate also, and for normal sperm to form, that has to occur just slightly below body temperature, which accounts for why the testes are hanging outside of the body and not in the abdominal cavity. So they produce sperm and sex hormones. So what's going to happen is the sperm are going to develop in the testes, and they're going to move into this region that's made of all these microscopic tubules all folded up, and this is called the epididymis. Now up here it calls an epididymides, and that's going to be plural. So an epididymis is one. So here's one epididymis on each of the two testes, and the epididymis is the structure where the sperm actually mature, and some of them are stored. So if the sperm are originally produced in the testes, then they move into the epididymis, and that's where they're going to further mature. And then as they're maturing, they're going to get pushed into this tube, which is called the vas deferens. Now the vas deferens is the tube that's going to carry, it says conduct and store the sperm. So it's going to carry the mature sperm through the male reproductive tract, and ultimately it's the start of them being able to leave the body. One thing you might notice is right here, kind of right where they have it circled right there, is where, if you ever hear of somebody getting a vasectomy, vas is the vas deferens, vasectomy, removal. And so what happens is they in order to prevent a man from producing sperm in their semen, they actually make a little incision in the scrotum and then just tie off the two ends of the vas deferens. And so that will prevent the sperm from getting in the semen, but it doesn't stop semen production. The semen itself is made by three different glands: the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral glands. And so there's two seminal vesicles, one prostate gland, and two bulbourethral glands. So if I follow the vas deferens, so sperm are produced, they're pushed up into the vas deferens, and then you'll notice that then connects here with the seminal vesicle. And so there's two seminal vesicles, one for each side. And the seminal vesicles contribute to making the semen, and it says contributes nutrients and fluid to the semen. So it turns out, the sperm cells are living, active cells, and so I always remember seminal vesicles starting with an S, as it produces some sugar. And so it's a fluid that contains some sugar and other nutrients that provide those sperm cells with some energy, some food, as they're making their journey to try to fertilize an egg. So here we go. We've got sperm. Now we've got some fluid with some sugar in it. And then the next fluid that's that's going to be produced to contribute to the semen is the prostate gland. And the prostate gland, again, here it just says it contributes fluid to semen, and it actually is a fluid that helps balance the pH of the semen. I think of prostate and pH. And again, the sperm are kind of delicate cells, so they're going to be in a solution with some food, with a balanced pH because of the prostate gland. One of the things we hear a lot about the prostate gland is that men, as they get older, have a chance of getting prostate cancer or just an enlarged prostate. And notice right here, here's the bladder where the urine is stored. And there's this tube that's coming from the seminal vesicles where the semen goes. But here, there's also a tube through which the urethra, the urine, is going to travel. And it goes right through the prostate gland. So if there's any enlargement of the prostate gland, it can pinch off that urethra. And so there's kind of a thing that happens to men as they get older, that they have a hard time completely releasing all the urine from their bladder. And it happens in most men as they get older. But some men have a worse situation than others. And sometimes if they get prostate cancer, it can also cause that problem. So it always needs to be checked. So we talked about the urethra that comes. So here we have the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and then now we've got the semen coming here. We've got sperm. We've got a sugary fluid. We've got a balanced pH fluid, and then the last fluid that maybe it's the first one from the outside, is the bulbourethral gland produces a mucousy mixture. So you might notice that when a male gets aroused, one of the first things that starts being secreted or released from the penis is that kind of a mucousy solution. And that's just a lubricant. And that's coming from this bulbourethral gland. And there's two of those. But that at first doesn't contain sperm. It should only contain sperm once ejaculation starts. That being said, you've got to be a little bit careful because there could be some sperm kind of in the pathway there that ends up in that mucousy mixture. So you still want to be careful if you're trying not to get pregnant before ejaculation. So the testes, the seminal vesicles, the prostate gland, and the bulbourethral gland all contribute to the fluid in semen that ends up then, all those come together in the urethra, and it's the same urethra that's being used for the passage of urine. But one of the things that happens during arousal is that the urethra is pinched off from the bladder to the urethra. So urine and semen shouldn't be able to go through there both at the same time. This is just another angle of showing you where the bladder and the urethra and that prostate gland is kind of going right around the bladder. If we look at the female reproductive system, we have kind of the same pattern in the page there, that we have the parts and a nice diagram here. And what you can see is the ovaries there's two ovaries, and the ovaries are the organs that are equivalent to the testes, and these are going to produce the ova, the eggs. And those eggs are going to be released monthly once a woman reaches puberty, or once a female reaches puberty, and one of those eggs is going to pop out each month and go into what we call the uterine tubes. You might have heard them called the fallopian tubes. And so an egg's going to pop out, it's going to go into the fallopian tubes, and these tubes are going to carry that egg. In fact, there's cilia in there that's going to push the egg down this tube, and that hooks into the uterus. And the uterus is where the developing fetus is going to grow. And so look at this really thick muscular wall. That wall gets stretched and gets thinner and thinner as a pregnancy progresses. The other thing to notice, here we go. So this is where if a sperm is going to fertilize, the sperm will fertilize an egg. And that happens kind of right here in the fallopian tubes. I think for this picture might be a little bit easier to see this. So what's going to happen is the semen with sperm in it is going to enter the vagina. It's going to go through this portion here called the cervix, and we'll look at that, and then into the uterus, and then the sperm can be carried up into here, and fertilization usually occurs in the fallopian tubes or in the uterine tubes, and then that egg is then kind of pushed into the uterus where it embeds and the baby will develop there. So we have the uterus where the developing fetus is going to be, and then the cervix is the opening to the uterus, and the vagina is the pathway that leads up to the cervix. And so the vagina is where the penis would go before during intercourse. Now, the one interesting thing is to notice here's the uterus and here's the bladder, and you can see this uterus kind of laying right on top of the bladder. So you can imagine that when you're pregnant, that you got to go pee a lot because your baby's sitting right on top of your bladder, and that is a problem that women have during pregnancy. So that's all I'm going to say about the female reproductive tract. Hopefully it's enough to get you through the virtual lab that you'll be looking at on the fetal pig.